Hi everyone, now we're on to the worst part that I think is of making the layout is actually the cutting of all the cards. Now just a quick word for anybody that hasn't done the cutting file with me before. What I tend to do is I have a whole stack of plastic bags like this, the sandwich bags, and just number them 1 to 10, and then as I'm cutting the cards or the ephemera and I say it's for card number 1, just pop it into bag number 1 and then progress through. So you will need bags numbered from 1 to 10 to put all your things in, and then when you go to the process video, when I say I'm doing card 1, you just need to grab bag 1 and it will have all of your stuff in it. So the first one that you need to do is this one here. I've just cut out the words there. You can see where I've cut and etc. And then that can be put to one side. So the next one, I have used some Hessian and some corrugated card, and I will actually put a photograph in of the actual cutting diagrams for the Hessian. And how I think the best way to do that is if I say it's an inch, draw a line with the inch, and then I say it's 2 inches and draw a line, and then go with your scissors and just cut that square out. And I have actually numbered them, or what cards they are, so then you can put those into your bag. So I will put a photograph, stop the video and put the photograph in. The next one is the corrugated card, and once again with that, the best way to do that is to measure it out, mark it with a pen, and then cut it out with your scissors. And once again, I have marked all of the cards, and I will put the photograph in there for your cutting of that one. So now we can start cutting our papers. And before we start cutting these papers, I think we will cut our cream papers. And you'll have to imagine that this one is green. So this is our olive green cardstock. So I've just done it onto this because it's easier for you to see as I'm cutting. So double check. Now open up your cutter and have your cutting platform, your blade on the right and your cutting platform to the left, because it's easier to cut your papers this way. So we are going to put our papers into the cutter and make our first cut at 8. You will keep sliding it through and you will cut at 4. And just drop them down, what I call drop it into the gusset. So take the card that is left on your cutter and turn it landscape. You're going to cut it in half at 6. So you will file these now in bag number 6 and bag number 3. Take the next one out and turn it landscape. Now you are going to cut this one at 9. And leave that one just here. Then cut the next one at 6 and pop that on top of the other card that you have cut. Now this one, now you need to slide into your trimmer at 4 1/4, and this piece is waste. Now this is a bit awkward with this card. So in other words, you need a card that's 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. So measure 4 1/4, turn your card and cut at 3 1/4. Now that goes into bag number 7. Now the two cards that you've had here, one of them you need to trim for number 4, and I know this isn't an exact size, you need that. So you can see that that's portrait and that's landscape. Landscape, you need that 3 1/2. So then turn it around so it's portrait and cut it at 2 3/4. And that gets filed into number 4. The last card that you've got left there, you need that 2 3/4 by 3 1/4. So if it's a portrait, you need that at 2 3/4. Turn it to landscape, and you need that at 3 3/4. So now you've got a card that's 2 3/4 by 3 1/4, and that goes into 10C. So we've got our last 12 by 4. So we're going to turn that landscape, and you are going to put that into your cutter at 9. And pop that down to one side. You are now going to do a cut at 5 1/8. No, 5. Going to cut that at 5, and just pop this down again. Now then you're going to carry on sliding it through, and you are going to cut this at 2 3/4 and pop that one down. Now the card that is left, you now need to trim that down to 2 3/4. So keep folding it through to 2 3/4. So you've got a little 1/4 inch length. Now turn that landscape, and you need to cut that at 3 1/8. And that gets filed into 5A. So now you've got that 2 1/4 inch by 4 card. You're going to trim that 2 1/4, so we know that that's 2 1/4 already. Turn it landscape, and you're going to trim that to 3 3/4. So you're just taking off that much of a slither, and that goes into 10A. So now pick up your other 3 by 4 card that you've cut, and you want to trim that to 2 3/4 portrait. In other words, you want a 1/4 inch off the side and a 1/4 inch off the top. So get in there. So there we have 2 3/4 by 3 3/4, and that gets filed into 5C. So you're left with one square card here. Now I actually did all my love hearts out of this and all my torn strips, but you need that match square, and I'll show you what it is for. That is to go under this box here for number 1. So you could actually file this into card 1 and then match your square and keep the rest for all your little torn bits and everything else. So that goes into bag number 1. So that's our green card completely cut and finished. So now we're going on to our cream cardstock. So I would like you to pop that, make sure it's 12 by 12, so just double check. Because then it's much easier on you, you don't make mistakes. And that's good enough. So what we are going to do, once again, you're going to put that into your cutter and you're going to cut that at 8. Leave that one down in the gusset. Follow through to 4. So you've got 3 4x12s now. Okay, you're going to turn that landscape and you're going to cut that at 9, 6, and file them away. So you've got 1 card for 6 and you've got 2 3x4s which go into bag number 10. So we'll take our next card and we're going to turn it landscape. You are going to pop that once again, cut at 9, then at 6, so the 6x4 goes into number 4. The other 3x4s, one goes into number 2 and one goes into number 4. So we've got our last one here. We're going to cut that at 6. One of those cards go into number 1. The last card you need to trim to 5 3/4 landscape. So in other words, it's 1/4 inch off. Then turn the card and you're going to do 3 3/4, which once again is another 1/4 inch. So you've got 2 1/4 inch strips. That gets filed into number 3. So our last cream card, you are going to slide into your, double check it's 12x12. Once again, I've checked mine, so I'm all right. So we are going to slide that in at 8 and 4. Okay, the first card that's left on your, turn it round to landscape and you're going to cut this at 9. Then you're going to cut that at 6. So the 6x4 gets filed in number 8. The 2 3x4s that you are 10B and 10D, so into number 10 bag. The next card you are going to just cut at 6, and one's being filed into card number 9 and one's card number 7. The last card you turn landscape, you are going to cut that at 9 and then at 6. So you're left with 1 spare card. The other 2 are for number 9 and number 7. So there are all our cardstock papers cut. We are now going to transfer to our 8x8 papers. So they are fairly easy. They are 8x8, so you just need to cut that at 4. So you are turning it, there's the top, you are turning it sideways so that the suitcase is on your cutting plate, and cut that at 4. Drop this one down into the gusset. The one with the suitcase, you need to turn around, and you're going to cut that at 6. Now the piece that you've cut here gets filed into 10C. So you're left with a 6x4. Now we need to trim 1/4 inch off the top and 1/4 inch off the bottom. So for this one, you need to turn it around so the suitcase, you're not cutting that 1/4 inch from. So we're going to cut 1/4 inch off there. Then we will work out which has got more cream. So we're going to turn it that way, and we'll cut 1/4 inch off there. So then you'll end up with a card 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. Now that gets filed into number 4. The next card, you should have a 6x4. So you are going to cut that at 6 with the postcard on the cutting platform. Pop that to one side. Don't worry about my white edge. My copier didn't print exactly. So now what we need to do with this one, we need once again 1/4 inch off the side, turn it round and cut 1/4 inch. So you have a 5 3/4 by 3 3/4. And that gets filed into number 7. So with this one, you've got the beautiful window. So you're going to turn it round so that the window is still on your cutting plate, and you're going to cut all the way down 4 inches down. Now then you will turn this around so that you get this piece here, and you're going to cut that at 3 inches. Like that. Now that gets filed into 10C. The window is spare. Now this last piece here, you will have a piece that's 4 inches. Mine is not 4 inches, as you can tell here. I'm 1/4 inch. It was where my copier, I chopped a bit off. So what you need now is this piece here. You need a 6x4 piece. So just chop a 6x4 off, and that goes to waste, and that gets filed in number 9. But before you do that, you need to trim off 1/4 inch and turn it around and take 1/4 inch off of the bottom. So you have a 5 3/4 by 3 3/4 inch card for that one. Okay, our next paper is just this all over pattern. Now you can cut this one at 4. So you'll end up with 2 4 inch by 8 inch pieces. Now turn this one on its side and cut it at 6. Pop that one down. So this one now, you need to trim it down 1/4 inch on the side, 1/4 inch from the bottom. So you've got a 5 3/4 by 3 3/4, and that gets filed into card 2. This small little card, you need it should be roughly 2 inches, but just double check, 2 inches, and then cut it at 3 1/2. That goes into 10C. The last piece here you need a 3x4. So just pop that in and cut that at 4 inches and turn it and cut it at 3. Now what we're going to do with this, we are going to trim off to make 3 5/8 by 2 5/8. So it is, I'm going to trim that down so that is the true 3x4. Okay, we've got the 3x4 card now. So you need to trim that down to 3 5/8. So it's 3, 1, 2, 3. I'll bring that down so you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8 and cut. Then turn it around and do 2 5/8. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5/8. And there you have roughly about that much of a strip you'll be cutting off. So that goes into 10C. Now this one here, you want to trim that to 2.5 by 3. That goes into 5C. Okay, that's that paper cut. Now we're going on to the armchair. Once again, you need to cut that at 4. Straight up, like that. Put that to one side. This one here, now you can actually see I have actually done my cutting line where that home is. So I'm going to turn that round so I can cut that down. As you can see there, I'm going to tear that bit off so you can physically see. Okay, so now you need to turn that round so the chair goes under your cutter and cut that pattern off the top, like so. Now you can actually sort of see where you're cutting. So now push that through and cut that down at 3 inches. I'll tear that off so you can see. So you'll be left with this piece here. Now turn it around again. I know I can get this straight because I've got the line. So line it up and cut that at 4. I just wanted to save some of the armchair. So that one there goes into 5C. The next card is for card number 8. You're just going to slide that in so the plant is under your cutter and cut that at 6. So there we have. Now we need to trim this to 5 3/4 by 3 1/4. So we will trim more of that plant off. Turn it around and cut where the plant isn't. So the plant will be on the cutter base. So cut that 1/4 inch from that side. So that's now 5 3/4 by 3 3/4, and that's card number 8 goes to. Our last piece, you need to trim, draw roughly about the size, a heart, and cut that out. So if you don't want to do that straight away, just cut that piece off and file that away. Now we're going to once again cut this at 4. So pop it in with a beautiful day up there first and cut that at 4 and put that one side. Then turn this around so the beautiful day is still on your cutting plate and cut that at 6. keep that one because I think we do a love heart out of that one as well. I'm not sure. So now you need to trim this to 5 3/4, so cut 1/4 inch off. Turn it round and cut 1/4 inch off. Now, if I was you, I would cut it at, so the beautiful day is on your cutting plate. So now that goes into number 1. Now, the love heart, just chop that off and put that to one side, and I'll tell you afterwards where that's going. So put those two to one side. That piece goes to waste. Now we've come to the wood grain. So with your wood grain, you need to turn it in and cut your wood grain at 4 inches. This goes to spare. Turn it around and we're going to cut a 3-inch piece. So you'll have a 3x4 of the wood grain, which gets filed into 5A. The next piece, you need to turn it the other way so that the grain is running acrossways. You're going to cut that at 3, turn it landscape and cut at 4. And that gets filed into 10C. This last piece, this piece of paper here, these two are spare. So what you need to do now is cut down where that border is, like that. Then turn this and cut down that border again. So you have your 2 pieces. Now trim this one up. I think you will find that's dead on 4. So just take that border off and turn it and cut that at 3. Just like that, and that goes into 5C. Correct, and I will tell you what you trim this to. I haven't written that down. You trim this to 2.5 by 3.5. So now we need to pop that into our cutter, and we'll cut that at 2.5. And turn it around and cut that. If I was you, I'd cut that bottom piece off first, then turn it completely around and do your 3.5, so that you just end up with that nice white sheet. Now that goes into 5C. Now we're left with this one, so trim all your border up, because you'll be using that, and just cut where that leaf is, straight up like that. And then what will happen, that will slide over like that to make a frame, and both of those pieces of paper go into number 8. Okay, so now we're just going to, I'll run you through these and you can cut. So if you get a pen, you need, I'm just finding a good texture to use that you can physically see what's going on. Okay, you need to cut, no, you can't see that. Okay, you need to cut Life is Beautiful. That one. That goes into 10C. You also need to cut this tag out, and that goes into number 1. So I'm going to cut these out very, very quickly. Because then I can double check that I've told you everything to cut when I check my files. Because after I've cut, I do check my cutting. So that is what's left in that page that you can put to one side and make some cards or whatever with. So our next page was this page here that we had things left over. Now from this one, you need to cut that word out, Live Everyday Moment, and that gets filed into number 1. Then Make It Happen. You can do this, just cut them out really quickly, number 9. So that's all that gets cut from that page, so you can put that to one side. Now, this one here that you had left over, all you need from this one is this square, which gets filed into number 1. And these two, you need one of these, which goes into number 4, and one of this big one. Which goes into number 9. So that can be put to one side. Now, I did explain with this one. I cut this one out for number 8. And then I cut a square, which I drew a love heart that was about 2 inches by 2 inches for 10C. And I also cut the clock out for number 7. So then that piece of paper can be popped to one side. Now you also had this sheet here left over. So you need to cut this one out here. And you're going to draw a heart, the full size of that, for 10C. Now these two go into number 1. Now this one, you need to cut a strip like that, and then just where that print finishes, cut it off and make a tag. I'll do that really quickly. Put your hole in, and that goes into number 9. Then this piece, get your template and draw yourself a big love heart that goes into 10C. Then what's left can be put to one side. Now you were left with 4 frames. Now you will be using this frame here for 10C. So you need to cut completely around your frame and cut the inside of that frame out for 10C. And this one, pop, because you're going to get your template and cut a little bit smaller, a heart for 5A. And I think that's all, but just pop that to one in your not sure pile. Okay, we're down to our last sheet. Yay, you all cry. So you can actually see I have used this tab, so you need the whole tab into 10C. You also need this tab, which you're just going to draw a heart about that size for number 4. And then you're going to take this little frame for 5A. Now these two here, you need to cut both of those out. One goes into 1 and one goes into 5C. Isn't any changes. There's all your cutting files ready for your process video, which I should have up tomorrow. So till then, keep crafting. Bye.